Hello, my lovely peaches. It is very late. Let me see. I can show you my cute clock. It is midnight, so it's early. It's late and it's early. And I was contemplating making a video, but then it got really late. And then I thought, you know what? I do want to learn some more about the Constitution, because I've always cared a lot about separation of church and state. And then I heard on the Midas Touch some off-the-wall woman talking about how she doesn't respect any religion except for her own. And she is calling to basically religious persecution of others, anyone who is not like her. And so I thought this would be a good time to start to get a little like TLDR on the Constitution. So that's what this video is. And maybe tomorrow I'll make another video. Okay, see you. Bye.
catlovedreamingpeach.com.
What is an easy-to-understand breakdown of the Constitution? TLDR. The Constitution is the supreme law of the United States, setting up the structure of the federal government and outlining the rights of the people. Here's a simple breakdown. Preamble, the introduction that states the purpose of the Constitution, which is to create a government that ensures justice, peace, defense, welfare, and liberty. Articles. Article 1 establishes the legislative branch, Congress, which makes laws. Congress is divided into the Senate and the House of Representatives. Article 2 establishes the executive branch, led by the President, who enforces laws. Article 3 establishes the judicial branch, the courts, which interprets laws and ensures they are applied fairly. Article 4 discusses the relationship between the states and the federal government and how states should interact with each other. Article 5 describes how the Constitution can be amended, changed, or added to. Article 6 establishes the Constitution and federal laws made under it as the supreme law of the land that must be followed by all. Article 7 describes how the Constitution was to be ratified, approved by the states. Bill of Rights, first 10 amendments added to protect individual freedoms and limit the power of the government. They include rights like freedom of speech, religion, and the press, the right to bear arms, protection against unreasonable searches, and the right to a fair trial. Other amendments, 17 more amendments have been added over time, covering issues like the abolition of slavery, voting rights, and term limits for the president. In short, the Constitution creates a system of government that balances power between different branches and levels of government while protecting individual rights. Separation of church and state most important. The concept of the separation of church and state is a fundamental principle in the U.S. Constitution, ensuring that government remains neutral in matters of religion. While the phrase separation of church and state itself does not appear in the Constitution, this idea is primarily derived from the First Amendment, which states, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof." This part of the First Amendment contains two key clauses. Establishment Clause, this prevents the government from establishing an official religion or favoring one religion over others. It ensures that the government cannot endorse, support, or become entangled with religious institutions. Free Exercise Clause, this guarantees individuals the right to practice their religion freely, without government interference, as long as it does not violate public safety or other people's rights. These clauses work together to maintain the separation of church and state, ensuring that religious institutions and beliefs do not control government policy and that the government does not control or interfere with religious practices. This principle is crucial for protecting religious freedom and maintaining a diverse and inclusive society. What are the 27 amendments? The U.S. Constitution has 27 amendments, which have been added to adapt and clarify the original document. Here's a breakdown of all 27 amendments. The Bill of Rights, Amendments 1 to 10, ratified in 1791. First Amendment, guarantees freedoms of speech, religion, press, assembly, and petition. Second Amendment protects the right to keep and bear arms. Third Amendment prohibits the quartering of soldiers in private homes without the owner's consent in peacetime. Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable searches and seizures. Fifth Amendment provides rights related to legal proceedings, including protection against self-incrimination and double jeopardy, and guarantees due process of law. Sixth Amendment guarantees the right to a fair and speedy public trial by jury, the right to a lawyer, and the right to confront witnesses. Seventh Amendment guarantees the right to a jury trial in civil cases. Eighth Amendment prohibits excessive bail, excessive fines, and cruel and unusual punishment. Ninth Amendment declares that the listing of individual rights in the Constitution and Bill of Rights does not include all of the rights people have. 10th Amendment states that powers not delegated to the federal government by the Constitution, nor prohibited to the states, are reserved to the states or the people. Subsequent amendments, 11 to 27. 11th Amendment, 1795 limits lawsuits against states, preventing individuals from suing states in federal court without the state's consent. 12th Amendment, 1804 revises the presidential election process, requiring separate electoral votes for president and vice president. 13th Amendment, 1865 abolishes slavery and involuntary servitude, except as punishment for a crime. 14th Amendment, 1868 defines citizenship, grants equal protection under the law, and applies the Bill of Rights to the states. 15th Amendment, 1870 prohibits denying the right to vote based on race, color, or previous condition of servitude. 16th Amendment, 1913 allows Congress to levy an income tax without apportioning it among the states or basing it on the U.S. Census. 17th Amendment, 1913 establishes the direct election of U.S. Senators by popular vote. 18th Amendment, 1919 establishes prohibition, banning the manufacture, sale, and transportation of alcohol, later repealed by the 21st Amendment. 19th Amendment, 1920 grants women the right to vote. 20th Amendment, 1933 changes the dates for the start of presidential, vice presidential, and congressional terms, and outlines procedures for presidential succession. 21st Amendment, 1933 repeals prohibition, ending the nationwide ban on alcohol. 22nd Amendment, 1951 limits the president to 2 terms in office. 23rd Amendment, 1961 grants electoral votes to Washington, D.C., allowing its residents to vote for president and vice president. 24th Amendment, 1964 prohibits poll taxes in federal elections, which were used to disenfranchise voters, particularly African Americans. 25th Amendment, 1967 clarifies the procedures for presidential succession and filling a vice presidential vacancy. 26th Amendment, 1971 lowers the voting age from 21 to 18. 27th Amendment, 1992 delays laws affecting congressional salary from taking effect until after the next election of representatives. These amendments reflect the evolving values and principles of the United States, expanding and protecting the rights of its citizens while adapting to changing circumstances. What is required to make another amendment? To add a new amendment to the U.S. Constitution, the following steps must be taken. 1. Proposal of the amendment. By Congress. By Congress, an amendment can be proposed by a 2/3 majority vote in both the House of Representatives and the Senate. By a constitutional convention, an amendment can also be proposed by a national convention that is called by 2/3 of state legislatures, 34 out of 50 states. This method has never been used. 2. Ratification of the amendment. By state legislatures, after the amendment is proposed, it must be ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of the states, 38 out of 50 states. By state conventions, alternatively, the amendment can be ratified by conventions in 3/4 of the states. This method has only been used once, for the 21st Amendment, which repealed prohibition. 3. Official adoption. Once an amendment is ratified by the required number of states, it becomes part of the Constitution. There is no need for any further approval by the federal government or the President. Key points. The process is deliberately difficult to ensure that amendments are carefully considered and have broad support. Only 27 amendments have been added to the Constitution since it was ratified in 1788, reflecting the challenge of this process. Are there any new amendments that are being pushed? As of 2024, several proposed amendments to the U.S. Constitution are under consideration, but none have been ratified as new amendments yet. Some of the prominent proposals include: Equal Rights Amendment, ERA aims to guarantee equal rights under the law, regardless of sex. The ERA was first proposed in 1972 and has seen renewed efforts for ratification in recent years. Voting Rights Amendment proposes to protect and expand voting rights, potentially addressing issues related to voter suppression and election integrity. Term Limits for Congress. Proposals to impose term limits on members of Congress have been discussed frequently, aiming to limit the number of terms legislators can serve. Campaign Finance Reform. Amendments to address campaign finance and limit the influence of money in politics are regularly proposed, seeking to reduce the impact of large donors and political action committees. Statehood for Washington, D.C. Proposals to grant statehood to Washington, D.C. would provide its residents with full representation in Congress. Electoral College Reform. Amendments to reform or abolish the Electoral College in favor of a popular vote system for presidential elections are occasionally proposed. These proposals reflect ongoing debates and efforts to address various issues within American politics and governance. For any of these proposals to become part of the Constitution, they would need to go through the rigorous amendment process involving both congressional approval and ratification by the states.
catlovedreamingpeach.com